Okay,
Okay.
so I'm going to put the first question in answered so you can follow along. My SA husband confessed he felt aroused when he saw our 9-year-old granddaughter's wedgie when she was wearing a bathing suit. Does that necessarily mean he is attracted to children? Could it be he actually triggered from recalling some adult pornography he viewed? FYI, our full therapeutic disclosure and polygraph is coming up soon, so hopefully I'll find out the truth then.
Wow. I mean, can you hear me, by the way, Tami? I'll make sure
Yes.
I think this is a very difficult question to answer, because if he had confessed to you that he felt aroused when he saw your 15-year-old daughter or granddaughter or your 17-year-old granddaughter, it's not atypical for adult men to be attracted to children in their late teens because they have adult bodies and all that. But someone who has, I just can't imagine. I mean, just thinking for myself, looking over at a 9-year-old in any setting or any situation of any circumstances where I would find that arousing. And so while I applaud him for being honest, and I think that's uh, probably the most important piece about this, I am also concerned. And I don't know whether it means he's attracted to children or not, but I sure know that most people I know would not look over at a 9-year-old and get aroused. So I don't know him. I don't know what it means. I don't think it means he's recalling adult pornography. Um, and yeah, I don't know what Tami could give some feedback on whether this would or wouldn't come up in a polygraph kind of thing. But what are your thoughts, Tami?
Oh, and I've been vocal about it on the webinars. I am not a fan of polygraphs because they're like, I mean, they're a coin toss. There's YouTube on how to pass a polygraph.
Right.
People have bribed the polygrapher. I mean, like there's some, but they're truly a coin toss. So you're basing your granddaughter's safety on a coin toss of a polygraph. That would not make me I would I would be I would care less about the disclosure. I think I'd be getting him to qualified testing for offender. I would be wanting to have someone
Right.
properly assess, you know, there are sex addicts, there are sex offenders. There is the Venn diagram where there are some that overlap, but there's there are others that are offenders. I too applaud that he told you about this particular incident. But like, yeah, I'm a grandma. I wouldn't like those kids would not be. I couldn't have him be around kids. I like that. I have that much of a reaction. I have to protect the kids. So,
And let
I
me
don't think
just
that's an overreaction either. I'm gonna
no, I
go
want
with
to
that.
pile. I can never get my lighting right. I want to pile on that and say that regardless of what you know or don't know, under these circumstances, I really want to reinforce what Tami said, which is, I would just make sure that whenever the grandkids are around, that you're there, or I mean, in the room, because. And here's the other thing, and I'm glad you're talking. I don't know about polygraphs. I'm certainly glad you're talking about disclosure, but my fear is that people who admit to something like that, often there's more that they haven't said. And they may even be admitting it because it makes them feel a little better about having gotten something out. So I'm actually very concerned the more I think about that and listening to Tami. So yeah, and I agree with her too. I mean, polygraphs are good for, did you cheat on me? Did you not? Maybe. I'm not a big fan, and I don't think they're helpful in as many cases as you partners think they are. In fact, sometimes I think they make things worse. But really having him evaluated for, could he harm a child? And if you want to call Tami, she will give you a referral. That's TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. But we know people who do offender evaluations. Now, if he gets offended, excuse the pun there, that's a whole other discussion, because I would want to bring this into some couples therapy and get a sense of reality with him in the room. So anyway, I'm sorry that's going on. I really appreciate your bringing it up.
Yeah, I do too. And like, the holidays are coming up and you go, like it's just challenging. I would not want to be thinking about what is my husband thinking about when the grandkids are around, so,
Right.
Yeah, so it's challenging. And here's one more thing. And again, obviously I'm a mom and grandma, but it's one of those where I'm going, like, if I was the adult child and I found out my dad was doing this, or there was a possibility that my child could be in some way, on a radar, hurt, touched, whatever, and they aren't in the know and protected, I like that, I want to keep my child safe. So I
Hey,
would
Terry,
want,
I'm not sure what you just said. Can you say that
okay,
again? Take a breath.
yes, I know, I've got it, like, really, this is really bothersome
It's
to me.
okay.
Okay, so I'm a mom, I have a 9-year-old child, and my dad is doing, and he isn't, but my dad is
Oh, I
doing
see.
something. My mom knows about this, and nobody tells me, so that I can protect my child. Huge. I, as the adult parent of the 9-year-old, would feel huge
I see.
betrayal at not being able to keep my child safe, So like this is complicated. I'm not saying run off and tell your children, but get
And we can't
professional
tell you
help to do
what to
that.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
I
no.
hear Tammy's intent, which is if you're feeling this, maybe the child's mother should know to keep an eye out. The other thing, I'll take it further. It's really important to talk to children about touching. And, it would be a great opportunity to say, whether it's your coach or your whomever or your auntie or whoever makes you feel uncomfortable, this is what you need to do. And don't worry about getting them in trouble. I mean, I think this is a very good opportunity, whether anything ever happened or not. And by the way, to say, has anyone ever done that? And you've ever felt uncomfortable? And what a great opportunity it is to just have that conversation, which you need to have anyway, and make sure that they're safe. The problem is what Tami said. It's really not your conversation to have. It's his mother or father's conversation, or both of them, to have. And so, like Tami says, a very tricky situation. I would not want you running. I understand what you said, but I wouldn't want you running to their mom and saying, this is what he told
No.
me. I think that would be a nightmare.
Right. You need
There's a lot more.
professional help with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Investigation, help.
Yes.
And what you can do to, you know where your husband is. So I would absolutely make sure that when he's over there, you're there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me
Okay.
say one more thing. One
Yes.
more thing. I want to go back to the honesty, and I really admire the fact that he is willing to be honest with you and come to you, but behavior has consequences. And just because I tell you, listen, I'm really wanted to tell you that I saw a sex worker and I had a slip, that doesn't mean that you're not going to leave me. It doesn't mean that, behavior has consequences. And just because I was brave enough and courageous enough to really tell my truth doesn't mean that my truth isn't going to cause a problem. And while he was very brave to talk about it, there may be negative consequences as a result of his talking about it. And then he may feel like he was a victim of this. He's not a victim. He's never a victim here. So anyway, thanks, Tami, for all that time.
Okay. Next question. I'm the betrayed partner. Did the disclosure in October and I provided the impact statement. I have heard references to the restitution letter. Can you explain what this letter is and at what point it is recommended? Should the addict be at a certain point in recovery?
So Tami, because you've heard so many of the trainings for CSATs and all that, and I don't really even think of it in that format, maybe you could explain what you experience out as being, because you'll be better than me at this.
Possibly.
What is a restitution
so a
letter?
restitution letter would be from the addict after hearing the impact letter. It would be, and it isn't like, I'm sorry, I did whatever, but Dr. Rob has talked about, like, if somebody's a heroin addict and they spent their child's college education fund on heroin, the restitution is that they restore the account, so there's a specific, I can't undo the past, but here's what I'm going to do to try to right the ship. So I would think that your spouse's therapist, as part of that, would be working with them, taking the information that you've provided from your impact statement. But I would not, it wouldn't be like the next day, but like, I wouldn't expect it to be more than a few weeks, so that they've had a few sessions probably to work on, what it is, and to make sure. Now, some of the guys, and I use guys, but some of the guys, you do these in groups, so that they're saying their restitution letter and the rest of the group has feedback on it. So that can be really useful. So there should be a period of time where they really have taken it in and they're hearing it and they're thinking about how they really would do this. And it isn't just lip service. But if it's, like October, it's only November. So, if it gets to be December and you're not hearing anything about it, that I would be going, I would talk to your therapist and have them talk to his therapist or something about that. But so what's the plan?
Let me clarify with you, Tami, because I want to understand. Yes. Is a restitution letter simply, I'm sorry, and wait, now hold on.
Yeah.
And my restitution is I'm going to go to lots of meetings and I'm going to talk to my sponsor every day and I'm going to go to therapy. Is that restitution?
Well, it depends on what it is. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there was an example of, let's say there was a vehicle that was involved in an affair. The restitution is I'm selling that vehicle. I mean, it's that type of thing where,
I
like,
see.
on this particular thing that is traumatizing for you now to see this particular vehicle, I'm going to get rid of that vehicle. We're going to go shop for another one, whatever. I mean, so it's usually pretty practical things. It isn't just about
Okay,
what my recovery plan it is. It's like,
good.
for these things where you've talked about being impacted,
Mhm.
where I ruined a vacation because, I was doing this, we're going to, here's how we're going to, it's not going to fix it, but here's what I'm doing to try to make restitution for that specific thing or betrayal. Does that make more
Great.
sense?
That was great. Thanks, Tami.
Okay. All right. So the next question is, my husband is having trouble finding a 12-step group that works with his work schedule. Oh,
Nah, just breathe,
and
breathe,
it
breathe, breathe.
also isn't so religiously based. We are 4 months from D-Day, been married 18 years, and both of us are involved in individual weekly therapy. So
Well, let me just take a stab at this. By the way, Tami is also equally well good at answering this
yeah,
question as I am. But so I'm not going to talk about the work schedule part. I'm just not. What I'll talk about is the religiously based. I'm interested in that part, which is that all 12-step programs have a spiritual foundation, if you will. Now, spirituality and religion mean different things to different people. I don't think any 12-step program is about any particular religion or ethnicity or class or race or any of those things, but they do have elements where the G word is used and people talk about it. Now, for me, God is the connection between me and another person. It's when we look at each other and we seek healing right in between us. That's God. For someone else, it's a guy in a big gray beard up in the sky. It's not any of the 12 steps job to define that for you. It's in fact the focus of it not to define that for you, so that people don't feel like they don't belong here if they're Jewish and they're not Catholic or whatever the heck it is. But and let me just say something about that. There are different 12-step programs, and some of them have a lot more focus and emphasis on scripture, on all those kinds of things. And they tend to be SA meetings, tend to be Sexaholics Anonymous, tend to be the most structured and the most, in my opinion, religiously focused, whatever that might mean to you. SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, I think is a little broader and more open and has a little bit, it just feels more comfortable to me. But Tami, you want to jump in
yeah.
because we are
Well, so like
equally
Celebrate Recovery is more Christian focused. I'm, like
right.
that is, they make no bounds about it. They're usually in churches. They're, so
Right.
that's a different, thing. Smart Recovery is more guided and led. We have drop-in groups on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. People create, peer, connections. There are, in a pinch, you can go to, any 12-step and just be thinking about what your particular issue is. Having a sponsor, you can work with a sponsor at a mutually convenient time. Um, a few years ago, well, maybe 8-10 years ago now, my car was in the shop and I could have gotten a ride to a 12-step meeting, and I decided to walk because I didn't think it was that far. It was a lot farther than I thought.
Better.
But I thought it was one of those where I was willing to go to any lengths. And we talk about that in 12-step. I'm willing to go to any lengths to do recovery. And so it really is a focus. I see the chat popping up. I'm just gonna let you know, I don't pay attention to the chat. We've got a bunch of stuff in the question. So if you're chatting, it probably won't get seen. But what I hear is him making excuses. I mean, because like in the rooms, there are 12-step meetings 24/7. Most of the places, the S groups and everything have gone to online. You can be joining a group in Singapore, because their time zone works, so to me, that's, like, oh, I'm trying hard.
If you have time to eat lunch, you have time to go to a meeting. You can close your door, and even if you don't go, even if you go to 45 minutes as opposed to an hour, you can sit through most of it. And I would say this: if someone had time to act out, if they managed to find time to look at porn, to be with sex workers, to have an affair, they can find time to get into their recovery. I don't think there's any better answer than that one, actually.
And I'm going to give you one more option. This isn't 12-step, but our sex Addiction 101 Level 1 starts again December 2nd. It's a guided, at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 90 minutes, and it's with peers. And guess what? Those guys then connect with each other, and then they can set up peer connectivity beyond just the group. $350, 6 weeks, really good psychoeducation, strong foundation stuff. So,
and I wanted to say something about Tami, because I've talked to a lot of couples recently. I do consultations and I talk to couples or in different places, and addicts will say, they say, oh, I read one of your books. And 9 times out of 10, it's Out of the Doghouse. 9 times out of 10, it's a book about how you make peace with a spouse when you've cheated. And while I think that's really important to know how to make peace with your spouse when you've cheated, books about sex addiction, what sex addicts should be reading in the beginning, at least as a part of what they're looking at. So what Tami's talking about is, we took my workbooks and work and spread it out over 6-week periods so that we could actually teach and do homework and educate the guys or ladies, depending on which group they're in, about what we're doing and how to get recovery. So all I'm saying to you is 2 things. For the sex addicts in the room, I certainly want you to understand how to make peace with your spouse, but you will never make peace with your spouse unless you get into your own recovery first. So if you're going to get a book, get Sex Addiction 101, take a course, do something that is focused on your addiction, because everyone who comes into treatment, and the guys who are in Seeking Integrity right now, I can guarantee you they're there because one of their relationships is about to fail. 9 people out of 10 come into treatment because they're going to lose a relationship that's important to them. But the goal coming out of that is not just to get forgiven or to learn how to be better understood, and the goal is to stop the behavior. And that's why we talk about the courses. That's the first place addicts need to start. Well, he's not kind to me, he's not compassionate. He may not be, but I'd rather he was at least not seeing sex workers, so there's a basic piece that has to be gotten in place before we can even understand how to make peace with you. So I think I just went on a bit. Sorry about that. I ranted.
It's all good. So yeah, I did on the first one. So should all slips be discussed with the wife, the therapist, and the sponsor?
Yes, yes, and yes. And just to clarify, because this comes up very often, a relapse is a return to sexual acting out without telling anybody. I'm back in the porn, I'm back with the affair partner, I'm doing it all over again, but I haven't told anybody, which gives me permission to keep doing it. A slip is something where, I made a bad decision, I ended up in the wrong situation, and I immediately go and talk to my wife or partner, my therapist and sponsor. I bust myself. I let it all out. And then, by the way, it makes it a lot harder for me to act out because everyone's looking like, wow, you just did that. Well, you need more meetings for therapy. And as I've said to many spouses, and I'll say it to you again, as much as none of you would want your partner to act out, as much as none of you want to be in this experience where someone's cheating on you, what's more important than that is their honesty. I know that you say, I'll leave this person, they ever do it again, but trust me, when they come to you and say, I'm really struggling and this happened, you might feel like leaving, but the next thought you're going to have at some point is, wow, this is new. Like, this is actually what happened. And I actually know what's going on. And he's or she's actually letting me in rather than being worried about being punished. And so I think that is actually a step forward. Although I prefer the slip didn't happen, period. But yes, everybody needs to know about it. I mean, not Uncle Sam, but everyone involved in your recovery needs to know. Tami, do you want to join?
Well, to the same level, because to me, I would want, as a spouse, I would want to know, some level of it. I don't want all the gory details maybe, but I would want to know, and I would want to know, and I'm calling my therapist and I'm calling my sponsor, but now with my sponsor and my therapist, wouldn't I want to go a little deeper into what's happened? Is it the exact same accountability for all 3?
Yes, and we're talking about a slip.
Right,
I'm sorry.
I get it.
I didn't quite understand. So if I drive through the wrong part of town where I used to act out, and I think, oh my God, what am I doing here? And I call my sponsor and I actually don't do anything, I would not tell my spouse. I don't think it is my inching forward or inching back in the process, it's only going to leave you feeling uncomfortable. And I know you spouses want to say, if you even look at someone, I want to know, but that's not healthy and that's not good for anybody. But you absolutely need to know if I have a slip. You absolutely need to know if I have broken that most important boundary. If only because in a year, you're going to say to me, wow, you've got a year of recovery. I'm going to say, well, actually, I only have 7 months. That ain't going to go well. So anyway,
Okay.
thanks, Tami.
Thank you for clarifying. Next question. Can you please explain reenactment? To be more specific, why would an addict act out 99% of the time with the same sex?
Sorry.
He was tampered with as a young boy by a man and says this is his way of reenactment. Can you please explain? To me, I can't understand this. It seems to me that it's his sexual desire. I'm struggling with wondering if he is gay or bisexual. How can I know for sure? He has acted out 99% with the same sex since he was in his teens and is married for 57 years now.
No, this person didn't say they were a partner. So I'm assuming, if I got that right, that this is, we don't know who this is, but we're
I'm
assuming
it's the spouse for 57 and is married and is 57 years old now. So the person is 57. They've been married to a woman, but is been acting out with men 99% of the time.
No, I got all that. I just
Yes,
didn't realize.
okay.
I wasn't sure how long they were married, whether it was 57 years or
no.
But Tami and I ran into a situation like this, and so let me just give you the basics. I was doing a consultation. It's a 2-hour thing that I do that you can have with Tami, can organize if you want it. But I do 2-hour consultations, and there was a woman there who was, I don't know, maybe 60, something like that. And her husband was like 64, and they'd been married for 35 years. And he'd had sex with hundreds of men and her, and maybe one other woman when he was in college. And she had the same question. And part of the question came up because they'd been to every therapist on earth. And every time that guy went in and said, well, you know, I don't really feel I'm homosexual, but I really think it's, and I was molested. The therapist went down that route and said, oh, well, it must be some kind of reenactment or blah, blah, blah. That's just a bunch of bullshit. Excuse my language. You don't reenact 99% of the time. You might, when you're drunk once, go, you know, do something with this, you know, reenact something in some way. Maybe you do it occasionally. But what I said to this couple was, and I'll say it to you, a duck, what is it? A duck now? Oh, talks like a duck, walks like a duck, must be a duck. You know, how many people have you had sex with that are male? Way up here. How many people that you have sex with are female? Way down there. Guess what? You're a homosexual. Welcome to the club. And just because someone doesn't want to have these feelings and doesn't want to be that, it's so much easier, or when they don't, it's so much easier to say, oh, look over there, it's a red herring. A red herring is a distraction. Look over there, I was molested. That's why I do this. No, you do this because this is what turns you on. So to you, whoever, to this person, I don't like to say their names. I agree with you completely. This is sexual desire. This is someone who's hiding their primary sexual desire behind a screen of, oh my gosh, things happen to me and that's why I do this. And he doesn't want to own what he is, so he keeps making it a question. The reason I brought up the consultation is because this couple had been together such a long time, and this spouse and he had been to so many therapists. Oh, poor baby, you were traumatized, you must be reenacting. And all she wanted to know after like 30 something years was, is he more into men? Is that his thing? I call it gay, call it homosexual, whatever you want, but she wanted to know, is his primary desire to men? Because every therapist I've seen gives us a different answer, and then he swings it around, and 30 years, I don't know what's going on. And we went through this, not much more than this scenario. And I said, the walks like a duck. And I said, yes, your husband is a homosexual. He may not let, and she just said to me, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. I may not leave, I may not stay. I don't know what I'm going to do and how we're going to handle this, but I just needed somebody to say this was true. And he would not. And by the way, he was on the call, because I do consultations with couples. And I said, do you have any issues with this? When I said what I said, do you have any disagreements? He said, well, not really. So 30 years of hiding and secrecy came out in 10 minutes. And simply because there wasn't anyone around to buy into his fears and buy into the things he didn't want. And someone who's willing to say, this is how I see it. And it took all the air out of the tires. But I feel for all the years that she got pulled along, because he didn't want to leave her and he wanted to have this family and he wanted to be viewed as a heterosexual married guy who was a picket fence and all that stuff. But he kept you, the partner, in the dark for all this time. And I'm just sorry for that situation. And by the way, to those of you who don't know, homosexual men can have sex with women, especially when we're young, especially if we have a meaningful relationship with them. Just because you're homosexual doesn't mean that you can't have sex with someone of the opposite sex. It does, however, mean that they are not in any way your primary interest. And this is a person who is not primarily interested in women, my opinion. Tami, would you like to add to that?
Well, no, I agree. And I hear, unfortunately, I hear these kind of situations often, and it often is in this age range. There's a certain, and sometimes it's cultural, familial, whatever, but regardless of his sexual attraction, he's still acting out. He's still out betraying you. So there's the
Right.
lies and secrets and everything else. So it isn't just, oh, he might be homosexual. He's still out,
Right.
acting out and betraying you, whether it was with a woman or a man, like, it does matter, but it also doesn't matter because he's still cheating. So there's still infidelity. So
And let
that's
me jump on
problematic
that,
too.
Tami. You're
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry that I'm sorry I missed it, which is a man will come into treatment and say, I have sex with all these men and I have sex and I'm married. Now, what am I, gay or straight? And my interest is, are you lying? Are you cheating? Are you, because I'm not as interested in who you're doing it with. What I'm interested in, like Tami said, is, are you betraying your commitments? Are you lying? Are you acting out consistently? Because then there are two issues on the floor. One, you're a sex addict, and two, you're confused about your orientation or don't want to look at it. But the one that trumps is the one that has to do with the acting out, because that will destroy everything. So I agree with you, Tami. The biggest issue here is not the one that's being talked about, which is he cheating on me. Thank you for that. That was great.
So if you want to schedule an expert consultation with Dr. Rob, Tami, Tami at seekingintegrity.com. I mean, it's always just optional, but man, like, we had, and it might've been the same couple, but he had been to 4 different therapists over 2 years and no one was able to identify. So just the relief of getting somebody to go, here's your options, is, can be helpful. So, okay. Next question. Hello, Dr. Rob. I'm a chem sex addict, 6 months sober. Yay. And doing SI meetings and check-ins. How do you build psychological resilience? Is lack of it cause of addiction?
What do you think, now, Tami, what do you think this person means by psychological resilience exactly?
I kind of feel like it's like, how do I resist temptation? Like my triggers, like that's what I am picking up on, but I don't know.
Well, the second part is lack of it cause of addiction. So to me, maybe I thought of that too first, but I'm passing it by again. And I'm thinking you're talking about like being well regulated inside, being stable inside. How do I build psychological resilience so that, because yes, if I feel badly about myself, if I'm ruminating, if I'm depressed, and you see that as a lack of psychological resilience, then yes, it will lead to addiction. If you're not able to tolerate and manage the day-to-day things that are happening in life, if you don't have the emotional resilience to tolerate a disagreement or a fight or a loss, then yeah, you're going to act out. But everything we do to get sober and work on ourselves builds psychological resilience. When I can learn how to reach out to people for help instead of acting out, when I can when I can be more, sorry, I'm qualifying that. When I am acting honestly rather than lying, when I have my integrity intact and I'm not split into 4 different people, all of those things. So it's mutually reinforcing. The more sober I am, the better I feel about myself, the clearer I am. And the more I work on myself to, whether that's dealing with depression or anxiety, whatever, or trauma, then I will be less likely to act out. So they go together. However, I probably am not, if it's a deep psychological problem, like I can't get out of bed, or I'm thinking of, 100 times about washing my hands, then it might be a psychiatric issue that needs to be managed so that you can be more resilient. But Tami, I think you're aware of this. The word resilient has become very important in our literature now, because what's really being talked about is how can you bounce back from difficult circumstances without raging at someone or acting out, or it's about being resilient. So that's the right term, and I'm glad you're bringing it up.
I am too, and I really want to commend you because I know chemsex in particular is so difficult. So
Yeah.
6 months is fantastic. And Dr. David Fawcett did a a webinar on resiliency one time, and I always thought people are resilient or they're not, and that's not true. It's like exercise, you build resiliency, so everybody has it. We just may have little, but like working out at the gym, if we do it, we're going to build that up. And so all of the things that Dr. Rob just mentioned helps us build those muscles. So great question. Keep coming back. Join the ChemSex drop-in group tomorrow night at 5 p.m. with Dr. David, and then he's got his webinar on Wednesday night too. So
I just wanted to say one more thing, which is resilience can be spotty. Like, if there's a car crash, I can get in there, I can help you. I mean, I don't mean to say such a bad thing, but if someone got ill, or I'm all in. I can do the laundry and help you and work 100 miles an hour. And I'm very resilient when there's a certain kind of crisis. However, if someone lets me down, I might be devastated, so it's not black and white. There are areas where we can be very strong and areas where we're particularly vulnerable. And once you identify those, then like Tami said, it's working those muscles to be able to tolerate it. And therapy and 12-step meetings, all that is where you do that heavy lifting. So thanks.
But even within an area where I may have more resilience, if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed, if my bandwidth is down, my resilience across the board I will be more vulnerable to things that, I might that might not, ding me at all on a normal day, but if I really slept poorly last night, like it's going to be more of an issue if there's too much going on, whatever. So being mindful, being aware, being grounded, like all of these things that we learn in program and that we learn in recovery all help us, like Dr. Rob said, all of it knits together and we become more resilient, and then, we have more bandwidth, and, we know what to do because we go, oh, I'm being a little triggered here. So it all layers on. 6 months is great. It's still early. Give yourself some grace. Keep coming back. So, okay, next one. Hi, Tami and Dr. Rob. I love you both. Thank you. Karen too. D-Day was on my birthday, which was 7 months ago. For context sake, I am currently working on disclosure questions, and our first session with his CSAT is coming up on this Thursday. Our first joint session was with my CSAT about 5 months ago, and he was blame shifting, defensive, mean, manipulative, straight out of the gates, which makes me feel afraid of our upcoming session. Also, his birthday weekend is coming up this week. Sorry to ramble, but I guess I have 2 questions. Are there things I should prepare for in terms of meeting the CSAT he has been lying to as I work through my disclosure questions, as well as making his birthday special without feeling overwhelmed by the memory of my D-Day on my birthday, what he did to F it all up, ruin my life? Oh, that's a lot.
Well, Tami, I'm going to let you answer the birthday question. I think that's one that I'll toss to you, and because I really wanted to get to the other one, which is
please.
And it's really a simple answer. I would not, if I felt uncomfortable like you do, I wouldn't meet with this person's therapist alone. I would, and I don't mean this that they're threatening, but maybe, well, let me say this. As a therapist who saw sex addicts for a very long time and then slowly over time saw partners, I didn't realize how much the addicts had been lying to me, and especially about you. Well, my spouse is this and my spouse is that. And before you know it, I'm like, oh, they have an awful spouse. And it took years for me to realize in the work, oh, I haven't met this spouse. I didn't know what's really going on with them. So in any case, if you have a therapist, and I think you did, right? He saw, right? They should both be there. You should have your therapist online, their therapist. If it's a money thing, make sure it's both of your sessions that week. And this needs to be worked through with both of them there, so that you have support and you have backup and he has support. And then you can say, I don't like the way this has been going, and I feel I'm worried that I'm going to get attacked when I go in there, and you got to clear all this up. And I wouldn't take further steps forward alone, because you don't know what this therapist has been told by your spouse or how you've been set up to be the bad guy. You just don't know. So I would make sure I had support too. And Tami, you were kind of nodding your head, and then you kind of.
Oh, I was, yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking of the birthday, and because.
Oh, that, yes.
Because you know what birthday is really meaningful for me? My recovery birthday. That's the one I really pay attention to, and I don't make a big deal about it, too much. But that's the one that's really meaningful for me. My belly button birthday, whatever. I'm getting older. So, but to me, it's like, do you really, really want to make his day all special about regardless of what he did to you on your birthday, which is not insignificant, but like, are you in a place where you really want to celebrate things right now? To me, I'd be kind of like, it's going to be just another day. And hopefully next year we can do things different. If he needs to go celebrate safely with, his parents or somebody else, maybe, but what do you need to do? What do you need to do to take care of you? It's not about his day. What do you need to do to take care of you in that day? You may need a spa day. You may need to go to a betrayed partner. You need to go take care of you. If you need to eat a piece of cake, you can have a piece of cake, and it doesn't have to be his birthday cake. So, but that's my thought.
Well, I support Tami here. I mean, it's like, I think that especially so early, 7 months, I'm amazed that you're asking this question, because I would be asking, I think most parents would be asking, like, how much poison should I put in that birthday cake, at 7 months? So I'm amazed that you're actually invested in wanting to. And I agree. I think that it's not tit for tat, like, this is my birthday, so I'm gonna do this for you. What I would ask you is, how do you feel? Do you want to celebrate him? Do you feel like you want to sit down together and have that moment? Do you want to buy a gift? It really is about how you feel. I mean, most of the time I love my partner and I want to do something for them, even when I'm mad at them. But this situation is different. And Tammy's right. This is a situation where you have to put yourself first. And you know what? Talking about resilience, you may have to tolerate your guilt. You may have to tolerate your sense of obligation, because this isn't about what's best for him. This is at this moment about what brings you peace and helps you to feel okay. And it's not your job to make him have a happy birthday. Like Tami said, he can go find some people who are in recovery or who are safe, family members, whatever, and go celebrate his birthday. Besides, you've already told us what you want. I just want to say this because the last sentence is, without feeling overwhelmed by the memory of what I had to find out on his birthday when he fucking ruined all of my life. I think that kind of covers it. I do want to say one more thing. A lot of you spouses, for whatever reason, I think I know why, will have sex with addicts after you find out, or maybe you found out we went back to the behavior and you have sex with us anyway, or you even want us in your beds. And I will say to all of you, if you don't trust someone, why would you have sex with them? If you don't trust someone, why would you have them in your bed? And when you come down to that way of looking at it, I've had a lot of guys end up sleeping in the hallway. So I would say to you, do you trust this? Would you want to celebrate someone that you don't trust? Someone who broke your heart and let you down? I don't think I'd be ready for that, but up to you. Or you can do a little birthday, like leave them a little note, and that's it.
The only caveat would be if you have kids and the kids need to celebrate dad's birthday, that would be
right.
That would be the only thing that I would, and then maybe you go to Chuck E. Cheese.
Right, for his birthday, exactly. Can I tell you, Tami, my feet are so warm right now because my dog decided to sit at my feet.
Oh,
and he's warming them. Yeah. It's better than anything.
Yes, no, it is. Yeah, that's
okay,
called. Yeah, okay.
Called
so
what?
next,
wait, what is that called?
Like no, I was gonna say that's called therapy, because it's like, like it's nurturing and it's like it's grounding. It's really good stuff. So yeah, my dog is not underneath my desk right now, but he often is, and that's I say go to work and he comes and slides right underneath. It's great. So yeah. So
okay, thank you for letting us do that, guys.
Sadly, my SAPA husband has prostate cancer. He will have to go through the treatments to reduce his testosterone level to a minimal, probably to zero. Doctor says that his lust desire will disappear for at least the period of the receiving treatments. In your opinion, do you think that he will still be able to have need to fantasize and objectify women? Thank you. That's a really interesting question. I don't know medically how that, how that.
Well, that piece I know. I mean, I think I can speak to that. So, first of all, the first thing I want to say is, and Dr. John Seeley taught me this. If I said to you, where are your sexual organs? Most people would say their genitalia, and I would say your sexual organs are between your ears. And there are a lot of studies on the sex offender community where they have reduced, if not eliminated, someone's testosterone in order to keep them from harming a child. In other words, sometimes in people getting out of prison or on probation, they make a decision: do I want to stay in jail or do I want to go on an anti-androgener? I can't say that. I'm not going to try. On a drug that reduces testosterone. So will that make this person less likely to want to, you know, maybe there's a better way of saying it. I do think it's helpful. However, what continues to go on, what's happened with some of those people who were had testosterone reduced because of child issues, is that they didn't stop fantasizing about it. They didn't stop thinking about it. Some of them continue to offend even though they weren't aroused, couldn't get none of it, because it was such a psychological thing. It wasn't just a sexual thing in that way. So I don't know about the need to fantasize and objectify, but I can tell you this. I have a really good friend, woman, who, and I don't know if I know about this, Tami, who had gone through, I don't know if it's cancer. She had some like MS or something, and they gave her testosterone. They wanted to increase her body's ability to fight in that particular way. And she told me, we were having a chat, and she said, you know what, since they put me on testosterone, I know what you men are like now. She said, everybody who walks by, I'm looking at them, I'm checking them out. So yes, there is a biological thing that happens with testosterone. There's a reason why there are more male sex offenders, why men get in more trouble for aggression and violence. It's testosterone. So yes, some of this is going to go away, but that doesn't mean he isn't going to, he would stop wanting to act out or couldn't act out. That was a lot.
Yeah, no, but well, and it is challenging for the guys that, you know, are into porn, and it's constant fantasizing. They can have, you know, the recall on it regardless, you know, like they don't even have to be looking at an image. It's the
Rotates in their
fantasy. So
heads.
yeah, so that's really challenging. So okay, next question. This one's a little challenging. Can you talk more about the polygraph? My husband just passed the polygraph last week. How much faith should I put in the past test?
Well, now you're in trouble, Tami.
I know. I know. That's
So
what's
now
kind of
you
like
have
so
to answer, and
challenging.
I'll answer after you. You got to take this
Okay.
one on.
So uh, this is an area that interests me. I have done, you know, some research. I could do more research, but there is no protocol on a polygraph. There is no research that a polygraph is helpful or at what stage. So
You mean
they're
in this work? You're not talking about
in this
courts
work.
or?
No, actually,
Mhm.
in courts too. I actually,
Well, the court does not accept polygraphs.
right, and
Mhm.
I listen to tons of the, you know, podcasts on solved mysteries and unsolved mysteries and all of those, and so like it actually comes up a lot from that standpoint. And anyway, so the challenge is, like it was noted that it's basically similar to a coin toss. And I unfortunately know too many cases where things have happened where someone didn't pass that probably should have, but it was asked a little off, and people have passed that shouldn't have passed. And so then you're basing all of your relationship on a polygraph that there isn't research, there isn't protocol, there's nothing. The other thing that I learned recently, in the last couple months, was that some person, and I need to go look up his name again, but he's in the Polygraph Society, and he said that they were making it unethical to ask the sweeping questions like, have you, you know,
Oh yeah.
is this all truthful or whatever, because they found that to be an unethical ask on a polygraph. So that still happens all the time on polygraphs. Polygraphs have become commonplace because partners are demanding them, but that's like going to the doctor and saying, I need, you
Right.
know,
I saw
I
this
need an
medication on
antibiotic.
TV.
Right. I need
Right.
an antibiotic, even though it won't help, but I demand an antibiotic and the doctors give me antibiotic. So like it really is. And there are some therapists that actually use polygraphs and they've got the right person, and, you know, and more power to you. But I hear, unfortunately, of the cases, and I'm like, for me, basing it on something that is that fraught with problems, you know, I wouldn't want to base my relationship results on that.
So answer her question. How much faith should she put in her past test?
He passed. Are you comfortable with it? If you are, move forward. You know, that, I
Great.
mean, you know,
If this was your measure, you got it.
exactly.
Right.
So yeah. So
And I want to pile on with Tami here in the sense that I helped teach the CSATs for a very long time, and I know that training almost as well as Tami does. And there is nothing in our training as sex addiction professionals as in that, what do you call it, expertise in that particular arena that tells us anything about polygraphs. Pat Carnes didn't talk about it. There's nothing in the literature about it, in at least in my world. And when I taught and when we were teaching or taught the information, they never really talk about polygraphs because it's not part of the work that is required to do with a sex addict. Now, I have used polygraphs, and if you gave me a number, I would say out of 100 couples, I've used it twice, because it's very selective and it's related to a particular set of circumstances. In other words, I will do a polygraph with someone who has done disclosure 3 times, and every time they were lying, they went back into life after 2 treatments, and they're still. In other words, when someone doesn't seem to have the capacity to be honest, and they've proved this a number of times, before I went back into that relationship, I might ask for that. But that means we've already been through the process a few times, because the honest truth is, it's more important. I know the truth is absolutely essential, but I want to know, can this person begin to be honest with me? Can they find their way when I'm angry to telling me the truth? I'm more interested in building the relationship and figuring out if we can have an honest relationship than in proving that on the March 5th, you did this or you didn't do that. And I think that the partners who are demanding that are going down the wrong path. It's the same, it's the same impulse to me as going through cell phone bills and going through every single thing you can ever find to make sure that you know every single everything. It might make you feel better, it might not. Most of the times when I experience partners doing investigation, it just leads to more investigation. And so the answer to your question, I agree with Tami, put as much faith in it as you want, but do know the courts do not accept in almost, I don't think any state, polygraphs. My experience when I did them in outpatient, when I had a practice in outpatient as opposed to seeking integrity, I had a former FBI agent who had been with the FBI for 25 years as their polygrapher. That's who I had. But but I can't tell you how many, Tami on our listserv, how many people say, oh, I'm in Omaha, who's a good polygrapher? How did you find, what is their background? Again, we don't have any protocol, so it doesn't say they need to be a former CIA or FBI officer, but that's who I would bring in. If they're a local sheriff's deputy, who's no longer in the sheriff's department, that may be who you get, but that isn't who I would put my marriage on. So part of it is who's chosen. The second, it is very selectively using it. And I don't think that you spouses should, in every situation, get a polygraph, because I think that doesn't serve you or the healing of the relationship. Yeah, so that's that.
Aren't you? I'm thinking you're probably on. I shouldn't have even asked that question. So okay,
right.
So
and he's probably thinking, oh my God, why did I even bother taking that thing?
Yeah.
It's
But
not a bad thing. It just,
no,
you can't rest.
Right. It's How useful is it? He passed, and that gives you some hope. And I think so. It's really more, what is he doing? What is he doing to show you? Okay, disclosure's a 1-day thing. What is he doing on a daily basis to show up that he's working on his recovery, that he's trying to be different, that that he's doing things differently? That's really what's more important to me, is what are his actions, now the polygraph. So okay.
And I want to have one more thing, because we go off on this forever. I can get a polygraph tomorrow and act out tomorrow afternoon. So what has that really done for you? Except, up to that point, but you don't, the only way you're going to know in an ongoing way is what you see me doing and how I'm interacting and how I'm handling my recovery. So, you can get all the polygraphs you want, but you're not going to see a change in me until I really start working on myself. And that is the more important part. Anyway, we beat that one to death.
I think so. I am a chemsex addict, 6 months sober and married. I used to have
That's
sexual
2.
thoughts.
Woohoo!
Yes, exclusively involving one specific person I had sexual experiences with out of many. Today, I have sexual thoughts while showering that start thinking about my partner in them, but then later I end up thinking about the other person I had chemsex experiences with.
No, that's one sentence. I end up thinking about the other person that I had.
Yes. Right. So it starts out with my partner and I end up with the other person. Okay. Is this showing an improvement, or I still objectifying my partner?
Well, I want to speak to a separate issue that may not being addressed here, which is, and Tami can probably affirm this better than me, fantasizing about my drug dealer isn't that different than fantasizing about the drugs. And so fantasizing about this person is not particularly, it may not be about her or him. It may be about the experience of using drugs with them and the excitement around it and the connection. In other words, we can broaden what was, a drug experience into being about the person and what we did together. And so I would wonder if this is also about how fun it would be to go off with this person and do drugs. And especially with only 6 months sober, I have a little suspicion with drug addicts in my experience, because we run a program that in part sees drug and sex addicts, that this feels a little bit to me, and I would bet Tami too, like I want to go out and use. And so, because, yeah, and by the way, what are you doing in the shower? Do you go take a quick shower? Go ahead, Tami. I'll leave that with you.
No, I was like, this would be a middle circle behavior. I would be going, what do I need to do? And if you need to call your sponsor before you get in the shower and call your sponsor afterwards, so they now have phone speakers. Like I have one for paddleboarding, but I listen to podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time on my shower speaker. And you know what? You could have Dr. Rob talking about sex, love, and addiction on a podcast in the shower. It would probably stop it'd probably stop your fantasizing about that. But yeah, to me, this is highly dangerous. Yeah, you're still objectifying. You're great that you're 6 months. That is still so early in the process. I can't, yeah. Thank you for asking the question. You need to interrupt this cycle. So, that would be my.
And if it were me, and I hope you have a sponsor in your drug program, I really would go to my sponsor and say, you know what, I'm a little worried, and try it this way. I've been fantasizing about someone I used to use with, and I've been fantasizing sexually and romantic, whatever you want. I think that's a great thing to bring into the program and work on specifically, because you'll begin to see how it plays out in your head. But I really don't think this is just about that person. And by the way, this should be obvious, but the grass is always greener. Relationships are tough, relationships are difficult, relationships are challenging. That's also what makes them rewarding. But the affair is just so easy and so exciting, and no responsibilities, and I don't have to do the laundry. And, it's just so much easier to be in the experience of the idea of being with that person, as opposed to really being with somebody, which is a whole lot more work. And by the way, in the shower, I have to say, it sounds a lot, if I had to add a word, I'm masturbating to thoughts of my wife, but then I end up masturbating to thoughts of I'm not saying whether that's true or not, but I'm not tracking all my sexual thoughts in the shower. And so I would wonder how that plays out. And by the way, if you're masturbating to fantasies of this person, then you are reinforcing the excitement about being with them, because you're literally having a pleasure experience while you're thinking about them. And this is the person you did drugs with. So this is a big problem, and I'm glad you're paying attention to it. Now you need to do something about it before you go out and use.
Yes. Okay, next question. 2 years plus dealing with SA spouse, dance between a self-created love addict, me since disclosure, and a love avoidant. Is it true I, betrayed spouse, must accept that things will be as they should be, lower my expectations on recovery, and simply deal for as long as I can, and once I have reached my limit, talk next steps, enforce boundary X living outside the home during continued work to save marriage, to avoid vicious cycle, disappointment, sadness, etc., and stop cycle of fighting between us?
Yes, supper's coming soon. Sorry, I just got a.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff here, and maybe we should walk through this together, Tami. Maybe you could interpret and see if we can get some good questions out of this.
Yeah, so 2+ years of dealing with an SA spouse. So the dance between a self-created love addict, me since disclosure, and a love avoidant. I have a hard time believing you're a love addict. Would you start there with a brief description of what a love addict is? Because I hear often partners going, I'm a love addict. And I'm like, no, you love a person who's broken. But anyway,
right.
So
love,
start there.
Okay, so sex addiction is the pursuit of people's body parts and the pursuit of them for sex in exchange for feeling validated and special and important and wanted and a sense of control. Love addiction is just like graduate school for sex addicts. Instead of objectifying everybody's body parts and everybody, I have chosen one person to pin all of my needs and wants onto. And then it doesn't even matter who they are. What matters is I have the fantasy that they will fill the emptiness inside of me. And I pursue them and get involved with them. And then all of a sudden I realize who they are. and they're not the fantasy I had. They're a real person. And then I push them away because they're not what I needed or wanted. In other words, sex addicts objectify body parts. Love addicts objectify the idea of what this relationship is or what it could be, but they're not really looking at reality. Love addicts are just looking at what they need and can I fit this person in to what I need. Healthy people, just to put it on the scale, look at someone else and say, I wonder who they are. I want to learn more about them. I wonder what they're into. Not can I just take whoever they are and make myself feel better with them. That's love addiction. So does that help?
Yes. And so
Okay.
then my point is, I suspect, and this is, what I'm making up when I'm reading this, is that you are a betrayed partner who loves somebody who's broken and can't show up, but you probably want to be very intimate with them at sometimes and completely avoid it in others. Understandable, the ambivalent love. I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. Totally understand that. So let's skip to the part where it says, should I lower my expectations on recovery and simply deal as long as I can? And once I have reached my limit, talk next steps. Like that
What does that
feels,
mean?
well, to me, that feels
Lower
like
what expectations? That
about
this
the
person,
relationship and that how this person's recovery is going to go and like what I should expect at 2 years. Like you should be like, if that person is really doing the deal, you should be seeing that they are showing up. They're able to, have empathy. They're looking to communicate. Like that would be, if they're not, then they haven't, if they're still struggling with the slips and relapses and everything else, and they're not gaining any traction, then they need more help than they're getting right now. And then looking at, I
send
don't
them to
think
us.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think betrayed partners should just settle and then go, okay, now it's a crisis. He or she is already out of the house. What do you need for a healthy boundary for you? What do you need to see your 2-year SA spouse show up for in order to make that different? Like, what is the plan? What do you need to see to have that person move back into the house? That's a practical step. And if that person isn't able to do that, then what do you need to do? Because 2 years from now, do you want to still be doing the same dance?
Yeah, I also want to note that you're not living together. And I think that there's a reason for that. And what I'd be curious about, and I can't answer this, but I'm a therapist, I throw stuff out there. Why did you choose to not live together? What was going on that really, what I hear is to avoid vicious cycle, disappointment, sadness, etc. Has that changed since you're not living together? Do you still go through these cycles and dances of disappointment, sadness? Because then I don't think it's about living together. I think it's about the relationship. So, and I'll give you guys the best advice I can give you about relationships and staying together or not. And then it's dinner time, I think, right, Tami? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you can go to therapy as a couple. This is not about sex, it's about relationship. You can go to therapy as a couple and you can improve your communication. You can become more empathic and listen better. You can be more respectful. You can work on your sex life, but what you can't change is who you are. So, and you can't change who you are together. So, you kind of know who you are and, you can improve you, change you, stop acting out, become a better person, but you're still you. We're all who we are. And if those two people simply have a terrible relationship or an unhappy relationship, it doesn't matter whether they're going to learn to communicate better, understand. They are two different people that simply don't get along. And so I just want to clarify what you can and cannot get out of therapy. You can improve your relationship. You can make it work better. You can be better listeners. But who you are together, that will always be who you are together. And, Tami and I, in our work, even though she's 1,000 miles away, we will have agreements, disagreements, but I know who she is. And I have a good sense of her, and I think her me. And so anyway, I guess I should leave it there, unless we get one more thing. Oh, go ahead. Oh,
No,
I know.
go ahead.
I did put in the text the name of the podcast because this is interesting, and I should go, but I hear two different things from folks. One, I saw all your YouTube videos, and then other people say, I listen to all your podcasts. But sometimes, and I don't mean to say I'm so important, but they miss one or the other. And so there's a whole YouTube video with all kinds of stuff about sex addiction and partner. And then the podcast has about 900,000 or close to it lists of people who've downloads. So there's obviously a lot there. But no, there's stuff in either place. And
And you know
costs
where
you
you can
nothing.
find all of them? on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. You can find the previously recorded webinars. You can find the podcasts. You can find the schedule of all the webinars
Blogs.
and drop-in
Blogs.
groups,
And
blogs, books, everything. Free. So sexandrelationshiphealing.com, all spelled out. So that's all great. Thanks so much, everybody, for the great questions. Thanks
for being here.
Dr. Rob for being here, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
We will. Thanks, Tami.